Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I haven't done a little bit of a longer video in a little while, so I thought I might give you guys kind of a check-in on how everything's been going. So if you're new, basically what I do is I work at Prestige Toyota of Ramsey, and I am in something called the DART program. I have another video explaining the DART program more in depth, but just for recap, the DART program is a rotational training program where you move through each and every department in the dealership, so you can learn the business on a pretty minute level, and that's supposed to inform leadership decisions down the road. So the goal is to produce managers and eventually GMs. That by me saying that is there's no intent there of saying I'm going to be a GM. There's a lot that goes into that. I have no idea if I'm smart enough, capable enough. There's a whole that's very far down the road. But that is the intention, is just at least that like general managers who've gone through this program, who have seen the business on every single level in every single department, may be best equipped to make leadership decisions. So that's the program I'm in. Currently at Prestige Toyota of Ramsey, like I said. So this week I'm in my third vocational rotation out of the program, which is sales this week. So I still have fixed ops, F&I, and accounting left. I've done appraisals and acquisition, BDC, and sales now. So a little recap of kind of what's happened. So I spent 2 weeks with acquisition and appraisals. That was kind of just learning the intake process and how a dealer kind of procures vehicles outside of its new car allocation. If I have not talked about allocation yet before, allocation is basically dependent on a thing called turn rate, which is how quickly you move cars off of your lot. So the quicker you move cars off the lot, the better your allocation is from Toyota. So this is a set kind of basket of cars that Toyota will send the dealership. And the one caveat to that is that you have to sell a car to gain a car. So like for us right now, for example, we probably have 20, at least 20 trucks on the lot. And maybe, that's probably out of like 65, 70 new cars, if that. So there's a lot of trucks. So the problem is that takes up, pretty much more than a quarter of our new car space. So in order to fill those spots with something else that people like, RAV4s, Camrys, etc., we have to sell those trucks. So like we had Truck Yeah on the 4th of July. That was a big sale because we were trying to push those cars out. We do not want them anymore. So if you're looking for a truck, come on, like today's the day, right now. So acquisitions and appraisals is how we get cars besides allocation, specifically used cars. So auctions, trade-ins, street purchases. A street purchase is basically just us buying the car off of a third party or a customer. So if a customer comes in, they don't want to buy a car, they just want to get rid of theirs, they can come in, get a free appraisal, and we'll buy it off of them. So a big part of appraisals is, really making sure you assess the value of the car appropriately. And there are some nuances that go into that, but making sure, and I think a lot of people will see a minor scratch on their car and be like, that's just a minor scratch. If you look on Kelley Blue Book and appraise your own car, just for example, you'll be able to see examples of damage that Kelley Blue Book writes as major or something like that. My point being is that with appraisals, even small damage has big cost implications. Because you have to look at it if you're buying as a new consumer. If you're buying from the dealership, you don't expect a car to have a ton of scratches, bumper deformed, paint fading, door hinge not working, like all of these like little things that maybe you kind of got used to over the years, that's something that pulls a potential customer away. So those are things that really decrease the value. So that's a big part of appraisals, is just making sure you get a very accurate value of the car, because then the car has to get reconditioned, and that costs like, you know, $1,500 to $2,000 depending on the issues present with the vehicle. So it's a pretty important job. And then on top of that, you have auction purchases, where there are a ton of auctions in the area. One, for example, is Manheim. So Manheim is, you know, like a wholesale auction, and we will buy now. We'll buy cars from Manheim. The caveats to buying at an auction is that it is a little bit riskier and sometimes can be pretty expensive. It entirely depends on how the bidding war goes. So the implication of an auction is that you're in a bidding war with other dealers. So the price drives up. Whatever you see at that moment is not going to be where it ends. So that's a little bit of the hard part. So there's some criteria and some rules that we use to make sure that we're buying the cars we need and the cars that we can sell. So for us, being at Toyota, we target Toyotas because those are the only cars that we can CPO, which is a certified pre-owned vehicle. That's basically kind of an added guarantee or an added promise that this car is, you know, good to go. There's no issues. You get really good extended warranties out the gate. So it's very much tied to kind of our pride and reliability. If we give you a CPO car and it turns out to be broken, that looks so bad. So we really, really do not like when that happens. So we target Toyotas, and then we target some other OEM manufacturers, but you know, it just entirely depends on the quality of the car, the miles, and what we think we can sell it for. You know, we're not going to the auction to buy trucks right now, for example, or Jeep Wranglers. Not going to happen. So yeah, so that's a little bit of the, you know, acquisition and appraisal process, and then moved on to BDC, which if any of you have spoken with a dealer before, you have probably talked to their BDC department. A lot of people get this confused and they think they're talking to a salesperson, which is totally understandable. And it's honestly something that it kind of needs to be fixed. You know, I think there's definitely some room for improvement there, just because customers are surprised for sure. They come in, they're like, hey, I'm talking to Grace today. And we're like, you know, Grace isn't a salesman. What are you talking to? Grace is upstairs in BDC. And she's the one who scheduled the appointment with you. She's the one who called you. She's the one who initially got you in the door. So if you started building rapport with her, and then you have to come into the door and talk to somebody else you've never met before, like a salesperson, you're already thinking, oh, like this salesperson's going to take advantage of me. It wasn't as nice as Grace, blah, blah, blah. So that's like a real issue that I kind of see that I think needs some addressing down the line, but neither here nor there. So BDC is the call center basically in each dealer that reaches out to customers and tries to get them to schedule appointments with the dealership to come on in. We get a lot of leads through different channels, but one big channel is Kelley Blue Book and other third-party car buying websites, where if you input your VIN, your customer information to try and appraise your car, we see that, we get that notification, and then we try to reach out to you to see if we can do business. Some people get frustrated when they get called by the dealer doing those sites. You do not have to input your customer info. That's kind of what I always tell people, is that if you don't want to be contacted, don't put your phone number down. You do not need to put your phone number down in order to get your vehicle appraised on these websites. You just need the VIN number, and we can't do anything with the VIN number. If we get a notification that says, oh, this car is getting appraised, well, who's appraising it? Oh, no number, no name, no email. Can't do anything about it. So highly recommend, if you want to just stay secret, keep your customer info out of it. You do not need it. And then, you know, in the back of your mind, you're kind of like, well, I wouldn't be opposed if a dealer reached out to me to see if I can get rid of the car. Then put your customer info down. No big deal. So that's kind of what BDC does. You know, it's hard. It's definitely hard. not hard work, so to speak, but it's hard to do because you have to be able to build rapport with people, and 3 5 minute phone calls where they're already kind of suspect of you because you're cold calling them, and you have to get them to trust you like that, which is difficult. It's not easy, and I did it for a week, made a lot of calls, and it was tough. I got maybe one appointment, um, and sometimes it's a little discouraging, et cetera, et cetera. One cool tool that I'll tell you we use is called Auto Alert. So that's a tool where it allows us to see if you've bought from us before. Let's say you bought a 2020 RAV4 from us in 2020, brand new. So, and you bought it at retail. So you're financing, you put, let's say it was a $30,000 car, 35,000, and you put 5,000 down. So you finance 30. Let's say you have, it's 2026. Let's say you have a year left of payments. So you got 12 payments left. Auto Alert tells us that, and they say, hey, this customer has 12 payments left on their vehicle. They kind of build a little bit of a profile of the customer, and they try to estimate whether or not they would be in the market based off previous buying patterns. So it helps a lot more when you buy from us repeatedly, then we can see kind of the mentality that you sit in. So at that point, we can then be like, oh, okay, I'm going to reach out to this person. And the cool thing about Auto Alert is that it's not just us going out to cold call you. What Auto Alert does is it sets up a deal for the customer after their term is done. So if there was 12 payments left on this customer's RAV4, Auto Alert will say, hey, you can get them into a brand new RAV4 for similar payment, similar APR rate, if you want to call them. So we call them, I explain the deal to them. And usually that's like the most successful way to talk to customers, is because, they hear, oh, I can get a brand new vehicle for the same that I'm paying now. That's awesome. And most people are used to having a car payment. So it's not, I don't really think of it as like you're forcing somebody to a continued payment. Most people, or a lot of people, and a lot of ones that deal with dealerships, they like having new cars pretty consistently. That's why people lease so much and stuff like that. So that usually gets customers a little excited, and we can get them in the door that way. So that's BDC. And now I'm doing sales this week. So sales has been pretty interesting. Some longer hours for sure, but that's because we have to build around the customers. We have to be here when you guys are done with work, when you have free time, etc. And there's a reason why it can be so lucrative, is because those long hours, if you really push at it, you can make a ton of money, which is really cool. And it's also, at least for me, I think it's kind of fun. I am not a salesperson by any means, and I mean that in the sense that, like, I'm pretty good at talking to people and having conversations, doing all that. I don't struggle with that. I definitely don't get nervous. But I have a hard time being a salesperson. I don't have the tactics and the methodology to kind of keep you here and sell you a car, I think, in the traditional sense that maybe you're thinking of. And I think that's kind of an added benefit. And that's kind of how a lot of people here operate as well. Everybody learns and they kind of know how to manage objections and what to say and stuff like that. But in reality, we're all here because we like cars and we like talking about it. Like, that's what makes it easy. If you like the car and you just like talking about it, it makes the conversation with the customer so much easier. And they often feed off your energy and they like it more, and they respond better to the whole process. So that's kind of where I think I do well, is that I don't have that typical salesperson dynamic. I just like talking about the cars and teaching and spending time with the customer. I think it's fun. So that's been pretty interesting. Last week I helped sell. I did, I'm new. I'm not an official, I'm a certified salesperson. So I had to have another salesperson help me out with the numbers and signing the deal and all that stuff because I also didn't know how to do it. But I took customers on, I had a conversation with them. I took them on a test drive, a little bit more conversation with them. It went really well. And they ended up buying an $80,000 Tundra Platinum. And I know that people think that salesmen don't get any pleasure out of, all they care about is the money. And yes, that's a huge incentive. Why else would anybody be working? But I think it's it was pretty sweet seeing it was a couple and, the wife was taking pictures of the husband in the car, like first day of school. And I thought it was really sweet to watch. And I like that. It made me feel good. And, I think people forget that there is kind of that added benefit for salespeople that we like seeing you happy. It's not, it is not just about the money. But, and, I don't mean to override everybody's experience with that. I know people have had terrible experiences with terrible salespeople, and that's just, the way of the world. I've gotten pretty lucky to see the side from here. I think everybody's pretty honest, pretty straightforward, really tries to just do right by you. But yeah, so been shadowing through sales this week, watching them go into finance as well, seeing how the finance office operates, how they kind of present the numbers, the legal documents, any extended warranties that the customer wants to buy. And yeah, so, I'll keep you guys updated as sales continues. This has only been my first week. And in terms of what to know, there's really not a lot to know. A lot of it is intuition and kind of experience. The biggest thing that you can do to control your ability to do well is product knowledge. If you know enough about the vehicles, then you're already at a good level. And then all you have to do is work on talking to the customer if that's kind of an issue for you or something like that. So that's where I'm at. I've done my product knowledge. I know roughly, Toyota's rough because they have, the 4Runner has 9 different trim levels and then packages in between. So there's a ton and you can't memorize it all. But if you at least understand kind of the overarching themes of the vehicles, then you can present to customers well enough. They usually don't need to know that the wheels on a TRD Sport are 19-inch versus 18-inch on a regular TRD. Nobody cares. So that's sales for the time being. I will keep you guys updated. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions, concerns, or if you're interested in the DART program. I'd love to talk to you about how you can apply and kind of get in there. But yeah, please, if you need to buy a truck, come on down. Freaking ask for me. Give me some really good brownie points. We're selling these trucks for big discounts. Super worth it. If you want a Tacoma, come do it. But until next time, I will see you.